In the shadowed corridors of ancient Rome, an emperor sat contemplating the nature of power, victory, and human conflict. Marcus Aurelius understood what most never will, that the greatest battles are not won with swords or fists, but with the unconquerable fortress of the mind. Today, we unveil the secret weapons of the Stoics, strategies so profound that they render your enemies powerless without you ever raising a hand. These are not tactics of aggression, but of absolute dominance through virtue, wisdom, and unshakable inner strength. Prepare to discover how the ancient masters turned opposition into opportunity, hatred into indifference, and conflict into conquest through the sheer force of character. The first weapon in your arsenal is the power of complete emotional detachment. When your enemy seeks to provoke you, to pull you into their storm of chaos and negativity, you become like the mountain that remains unmoved by the wind. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer more in imagination than reality, and your enemy's greatest power lies in their ability to disturb your peace. But what happens when you refuse to be disturbed? What happens when their insults bounce off you like arrows off armor? They become powerless. Their words lose all meaning. Their attempts at manipulation fall flat. You stand there serene and unaffected, while they exhaust themselves in futile rage. This is not indifference born of weakness, but the supreme confidence of one who knows their own worth cannot be diminished by another's opinion. Your second strategy is to master the art of strategic silence. While your enemy wastes their energy on words, accusations, and empty threats, you conserve your power. Silence is not surrender, it is the deepest form of strength. When you refuse to engage in petty arguments, when you decline to defend yourself against baseless attacks, you force your enemy to confront their own reflection. They begin to question themselves, to doubt their position, to realize that their weapons have no effect on you. Seneca taught that every new word is a new vulnerability, but silence is impenetrable. Let them speak themselves into irrelevance while you build your empire of influence through action, not reaction. The third path to victory lies in your unwavering commitment to virtue, regardless of how others behave. This is perhaps the most devastating weapon in your arsenal because it exposes your enemy's moral bankruptcy by contrast. When they lie, you speak truth. When they act with selfishness, you demonstrate generosity. When they choose hatred, you embody justice and wisdom. You don't do this to appear superior, but because virtue is its own reward. Yet the side effect is profound. Others begin to see the stark difference between you and your enemy. Your character becomes a mirror that reflects their flaws, and they find themselves increasingly isolated as people naturally gravitate toward authenticity and integrity. Transform yourself into someone who cannot be threatened because you have already accepted the worst that life can offer. This is the Stoic practice of negative visualization, and it renders you invincible. Your enemy seeks to control you through fear. But what can they threaten when you have already contemplated and accepted loss? Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest philosophers, understood that external circumstances cannot touch the sovereign territory of your mind. When you have genuinely accepted that you could lose everything material and still maintain your dignity and peace, your enemy's threats become meaningless noise. They cannot leverage what you are not afraid to lose. The fifth strategy is to become so focused on your own growth and mission that your enemy becomes irrelevant background noise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is short and that energy spent on others' opinions is energy stolen from meaningful work. When you pour yourself completely into becoming the best version of yourself, into building something significant, into serving a purpose greater than petty conflicts, your enemy fades into insignificance. They become a small distraction in your peripheral vision while you stride toward greatness. This isn't about ignoring problems, but about maintaining such clarity of purpose that temporary obstacles don't derail your journey. Choose to respond to every attack with unexpected kindness and generosity. This approach confuses and disarms your enemy more effectively than any aggressive counterattack. When they expect retaliation and receive compassion instead, it forces them to confront their own motivations and methods. They came prepared for war and found peace. They armed themselves for battle and encountered grace. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat, but rather responding from a position of strength so secure that you can afford to be generous. Your kindness becomes a spotlight that illuminates their pettiness, making them question their own actions, while elevating your reputation in the eyes of all who witness the exchange. The seventh weapon is your absolute commitment to truth, even when lies would be easier or more advantageous. Your enemy may resort to deception, manipulation, and half-truths, but you remain anchored to reality. This consistency becomes your trademark, your brand, your unshakable foundation. People learn to trust your word implicitly while growing suspicious of your enemy's shifting narratives. Truth has a weight and gravity that lies cannot match. When conflicts arise, others instinctively turn to the person they know will give them honest counsel. Your reputation for truthfulness becomes a fortress that protects not just you, but all who align themselves with you. Develop the discipline to think long-term while your enemy remains trapped in short-term thinking. They want immediate gratification, instant revenge, quick victories that often prove hollow. You plant seeds for forests while they grab for fruit from saplings. This temporal advantage compounds over time until the difference between your positions becomes insurmountable. Seneca taught that every moment of patience is an investment in future strength. While your enemy burns bridges, you build networks. While they make enemies, you create allies. While they seek to tear down, you focus on construction. Years later, you stand atop an empire of relationships and achievements, while they survey the wreckage of their reactive choices. The ninth path involves turning your enemy's attacks into opportunities for your own advancement. When they criticize you publicly, you use it as a chance to demonstrate grace under pressure. When they spread rumors, you let your actions speak louder than their words. When they try to sabotage your work, you improve your systems and processes to become even stronger. This is the Stoic principle of turning obstacles into pathways. Your enemy becomes an unwitting contributor to your success, a harsh teacher who forces you to develop capabilities you might never have discovered in comfort. They think they are tearing you down, but they are actually building you up. Master the art of controlling your narrative without engaging in petty disputes. You don't need to argue your point when your life argues it for you. Your consistent behavior, your results, your character speak volumes without you needing to raise your voice. While your enemy exhausts themselves trying to convince others of your flaws, you simply continue being excellent. People judge not by what is said about you, but by what they observe you doing. Your enemy's accusations begin to seem increasingly desperate and unfounded when measured against the evidence of your actual conduct and achievements. The 11th strategy requires you to become so internally secure that external validation becomes unnecessary. Your enemy's power often relies on your need for others' approval, your fear of criticism, your desire to be liked. But when you cultivate unshakable self-respect based on your own moral standards rather than others' opinions, you become untouchable. They cannot hurt what they cannot reach, and they cannot reach a person who has found their center. This inner fortress makes you simultaneously humble and invincible. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because you know who you are and what you stand for. Choose to see your enemy as a teacher rather than a threat. This perspective shift transforms every interaction from a battle into a lesson. Their behavior shows you what not to become. Their mistakes illuminate the path you should avoid. Their weaknesses reveal areas where you must remain strong. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how difficult people served as training partners for his patience and wisdom. When you approach conflict as education rather than warfare, you extract value from every encounter while your enemy gains nothing but their own frustration and exhaustion. The 13th weapon in your arsenal is the strategic use of time. Your enemy wants immediate engagement, instant reactions, real-time responses to their provocations. You understand that time is your ally. You take days, weeks, or months to consider your response if any response is needed at all. This patience drives reactive people to distraction while giving you the space to choose your battles wisely. Most conflicts that seem urgent today will be forgotten tomorrow. By refusing to be rushed into action, you often discover that problems solve themselves or that better solutions emerge with time. Your enemy exhausts themselves in urgent action while you conserve energy for what truly matters. Develop such mastery over your own mind that your enemy's psychological tactics become powerless. They may try to make you angry, fearful, jealous, or insecure, but you have trained yourself to observe these emotions without being controlled by them. You notice the anger arising and let it pass like a cloud across the sky. You acknowledge the fear and choose courage anyway. You see their attempts at manipulation clearly, like watching a magician perform tricks after you've learned how they're done. This emotional intelligence becomes your shield and your sword, protecting you from influence while allowing you to understand and predict your enemy's behavior with startling accuracy. The final and most powerful strategy is to transcend the entire concept of enemies altogether. This is the ultimate Stoic achievement, recognizing that those who oppose you are simply playing their role in the grand theater of existence. They are not truly separate from you, but part of the same human experience, struggling with their own fears, insecurities, and limitations. When you reach this level of understanding, you no longer need to destroy your enemies because you no longer have enemies, only fellow humans making different choices. This doesn't mean becoming naive or failing to protect yourself, but rather approaching all interactions from a place of wisdom rather than reactivity. You become like the sun, shining equally on all, indifferent to whether others appreciate your light or curse your heat. You now possess the greatest weapons ever forged, the principles that made emperors and slaves alike into giants of human achievement. These strategies don't just defeat your enemies, they transform you into someone so formidable, so centered, so genuinely powerful that opposition becomes irrelevant. You have learned to win not by conquering others, but by conquering yourself. You have discovered how to be so anchored in virtue, so committed to excellence, so master of your own domain that external conflicts become mere ripples on the ocean of your purpose. This is the ultimate victory. Not the defeat of others, but the triumph of your own highest nature. Go forward now, not as a warrior seeking battle, but as a philosopher king, building a kingdom that cannot be shaken because it is built on the unshakable foundations of wisdom, virtue, and inner strength. The ancient Stoics have given you the keys to a power that grows stronger with time, a victory that deepens with each day you choose excellence over mediocrity, wisdom over reaction, and virtue over convenience. Use these gifts wisely and discover what it truly means to be unconquerable.